This is the case for Angela Swaggerty, DOC 476261. We have Brian Clark, 22nd ADA. We have Sandra Schubert, who's a victim who will be speaking, and with Sandra, we have Sybil Johnson, Wanda Strongman, Michael Schubert, and Kayla Schubert. Then we have Tammy Discon, who's a sister who would like to speak, and with Tammy, we have Ray Swaggerty, who's the son who would like to speak in support.
All right, welcome everyone. Good morning, Ms. Swaggerty. Would you introduce yourself to everyone? Tell us your name and C number. I'm sorry, wait, they get your microphone's on mute. They'll unmute you. There we go. Tell us your name and DOC number.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, first. My name is Angela Swaggerty, DOC 476261.
476261. Is that what you said? Okay, good. Good morning. Let me introduce the pardon board to you. I think you can see us on your screen. I'm Cheryl Renazza. We have Mr. Tony Marabella, Mr. Alvin Roche, Mr. Victor Jones. For the benefit of everybody here, let me explain to you how this process will work. I'll just read some identifying information into the record, ask you to confirm it. Your case has been assigned to Mr. Roche, so then I'll turn it over to him. He'll present your case, ask you some questions, and then we'll hear from Warden Butte, and we'll hear from those folks who've indicated they'd like to speak today. And then at the very end, you'll be allowed to make a statement if you want to do that before we vote. All right.
Yes.
So you're Angela Swaggerty, DOC 476261. You're here because you're asking before the pardon board because you're asking for a commutation of your sentence.
Yes, ma'am.
You were sentenced in St. Tammany on December 4th, 2003 for obstruction of justice.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right? You received a 30-year sentence, and then in October 2004. For second-degree murder, you received a life sentence, and those are running consecutively. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Roche.
Good morning, Ms. Swaggerty. How are you?
Good morning, sir. I'm fine. A little nervous.
Okay, just sit back and relax. I have a presentation, and then during the presentation, I'll ask you some questions, okay?
Yes, sir.
And if any of the information is incorrect, please correct me, okay?
Yes, sir.
Madam Chairman, before us we have Angela Swaggerty, DOC number 476261. She's here this morning seeking a recommendation for a commutation of sentence. First, for the obstruction of justice, which she pled to and received 30 years. Secondly, 2 counts of second-degree murder, which she was found guilty of a year later and received 2 life sentences to run consecutively. So, and when they handed down the 2 life sentences consecutively, they ran the 30-year obstruction of justice concurrent to those 2 life sentences. The period between arrest and the final conviction for second-degree murder was 7 years. And later on in the process, Ms. Swaggerty, I'm going to ask you, why did it take 7 years to complete the process? Ms. Swaggerty was arrested in September of 1997 and convicted and sentenced in October 2004. And basically, opposition in this case comes from the DA's office of the 22nd JDC, the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office, and Ms. Cheryl Stratman, the daughter of the victim. Also, Ms. Karen A. Wilcox, another daughter of the victim, and Ms. Sandra Sherbach, who is another daughter, and I think she's present here at the hearing, and we will hear from her at a later date. Also, I think there's a brother who's also in opposition. Ms. Swaggerty has 3 arrests on her adult record. She has no supervision history. She has a low risk assessment, and she is in medium custody. Her institutional record is good. Programs completed. Tell us about some of the programs that you've completed, Ms. Swaggerty.
Oh, wow. Leave my mask down. Yes, sir. Well, to begin with, it was a wonderful feeling to receive my GED, which I thought I would never get. So that was a great feeling. And then I went on to acquire my associate's degree in Christian ministry. I took horticulture and obtained 6 licenses along with my diploma and my nurseryman certification. I've completed substance abuse, parenting, anger management, the reentry program. I was a tutor for special needs students.
And you completed Life's Healing Choices.
Yes, sir, I did.
Development and money management.
Sir?
You've also completed Life's Healing Choices, is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
In money management?
Money management, yes, sir.
Okay, but I see the last program you completed on your transcript was in 2018. What classes have you completed since 2018?
Since 2018, I did the reentry program. Wasn't that in 18?
That was in November of 2018.
Okay. Yeah, that may, I guess that was the last one.
Okay, so in the last 2.5 years, you've not completed any good time classes?
Well, we was in the Healing Place Bible study, you know,
Okay.
in 2018.
Okay. The next thing I'm going to, Miss Swaggerty scored a 1 on the ASA instrument. And as I said before, the ASA instrument is one that tells if there was any violent or sexual or anything in her early childhood would cause the criminal activity at the time of the offense, and she scored very high. The lower the score, the better the ACE gauges whether or not anything in her childhood would have affected the criminal activity as an adult. And she scored a 1. She has good family support. Her present job assignment is a recreational worker. Tell us what you do, Ms. Swaggerty.
My job, the recreational department, I do inventory, entertainment, distribution, and pickup of puzzles, games, etc., and any other job that's required of recreation. You know, puzzles are kind of relaxing. It helps relieve the stress. So a lot of women like to do puzzles in there.
Okay. There are letters of opposition from the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office. And there's letters from the DA's office in the 22nd JDC opposing any type of clemency. We have letters from the 3 I think it's sisters of the victim, Miss Wilcox, Miss Sherbert, and Miss Stratman. And believe it or not, the sisters are 87, 83, and 79. And there's also a letter from a brother who's 70 years old. Letters of support for clemency. He has a letter from her Aunt Barbara, Miss Whittington, a cousin, Greg Vaughn, a brother, Ronnie Vaughn, a brother, Miss Shirley Vaughn is the offender's mother, Miss Ronald Vaughn, stepfather, and a friend, Miss Brenda Thornton, all submitted letters in support of clemency. Miss Swaggerty has an approved residency plan with her mother in Pearl River, Louisiana. Is that correct?
I didn't hear. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't hear.
You have an approved residency plan with your mother in Pearl River, Louisiana.
Yes, sir. Correct.
And you have a job offer with Diva Decor, which is a house cleaning company, lawn service, and painting company. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that's in Picayune, Mississippi.
But that is, my sister works that area and she would have me to work the Slidell area.
Good. Okay. Because I was worried about the crossing of state lines on a daily basis.
Right. No, sir. She thought I would be doing the Slidell area for her.
Okay. And last note, I saw that you were elevated off of that manager's job.
And at this job you talk
Yeah.
about? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Manager position.
Okay. Now, Ms. Swaggerty, I see where you've spent a lot of time and money trying to appeal your conviction and sentence. You stated in some of your narrative that you thought that the conviction was unjust, the sentence was unjust, and you also claimed that the provisions of the sentence that said that you would get no demolition of sentence, which is the good time provision, you tried to appeal all those on the basis of 3 errors that were made in your trial. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So why would you spend that much time, energy, and money trying to appeal your conviction and sentence?
I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to say to that. Why would I spend that much time and money? Try to get home to my family.
So you
my family.
You pled guilty to obstruction of justice, and you were found guilty by a jury of your peers, and there must have been something in the commission of this crime that was so glaring that a jury of 12 people convicted you of 2 counts of second-degree murder. When the jury did that, the judge thought it was serious enough to run both of those consecutively. So why would you appeal that decision? And all 3 errors of assignment of errors was found unfounded by an appeals court.
I just never give up hope. Just gotta keep.
So you're not really claiming responsibility for the crime.
Yes, sir. I take full responsibility for my part. Yes, sir, I am. All of it. I take full responsibility.
So you were responsible for the death of Miss Catherine and Mr. James. And after 7 years in the process, you were found guilty. I don't understand why you would appeal it.
May I say that I come in after the fact, sir, and I take full responsibility for my wrong choices that I made.
Okay, all right, let's continue. Warden Butte, would you like to make any comments, remarks, or observations?
Yeah, so let me make sure that Ms. Swaggerty understands that question. So you do understand that he's asking you why you appealed your case, right?
But I'm not sure how to answer that.
You answered with the truth. So are you currently aware of why you appealed your case?
I appealed it because I just thought 2 life sentences was a little too much.
Okay, you thought it was excessive. Okay, thank you. On my end, Mr. Porche, only thing I can tell you is that she's, again, another person that's been very active in the community, in the prison setting, hasn't caused any issues for the prison setting. Cause any issues. So that's what I have to give.
Thank you, Warden Butte. Madam Chairman, I do have a recommendation in this case, and I will share with you and the fellow board members at the conclusion of this interview.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Marabella?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, I don't know about the rest of the board, but when the warden was talking, it cut out on me. So I didn't get to hear everything that he said. If he would not mind just repeating a little bit about what he said about Ms. Swaggerty.
Yes, sir. I was just basically repeating the fact that she's been active educationally, programming. She hasn't had any issue cohabitating with the rest of the offenders and haven't caused any problems while being here.
Great. Thank you very much. Ms. Swaggerty, Mr. Roche asked you some questions perhaps that were difficult for you to answer because you're not a lawyer. And you suggested that you appealed your case, and you said there's hope, and you were hoping to appeal your case. We're not here to really retry your case, but I do have some questions. Were you aware, what was your relationship with Ronald Adams?
He was my boyfriend at the time. We lived together.
All right. Were you aware that he was going to rob and kill his parents?
I was not aware of it at the time. It was afterwards when he started telling me. Then yes, sir, I became aware of it.
All right. Now, and that's my question. It appears from reading everything, you got involved in this after those 2 people were killed.
Yes, sir. Correct.
Which would make you an accessory after the fact or obstruction of justice. I'm a little curious as to what the theory of your being a principal to murder is. Although I have to say, as Mr. Roche points out, the courts of appeal affirmed it. I'm not exactly sure what a jury found or what they saw or how they found you to be guilty as a principal to murder. So I say that simply because I certainly don't hold it against you for appealing your case. I think that's certainly your right, and you have every right to do that. I guess Mr. Clark is the assistant district attorney. Perhaps he could explain that to me at some point as to what the theory is as to how she was a principal to murder. It's water under the bridge, and I understand that, but that would be helpful to me to kind of get an understanding of that. So you have gotten a lot of educational things while you've been in prison. I see that you've done culinary arts. Tell me a little bit about what you've done in terms of your culinary arts. I see you've got experience with sewing machines. You've done educational work. You're very proud of having gotten your GED, which I think is good. So tell me about those things you've accomplished while you've been in prison.
Well, it took quite some time, but I mean, I stayed with it. I never gave up. Just like in the seminary, it's really hard, but if you stay with it, you can accomplish anything,
Okay.
And I wanted to rehabilitate myself and do something better and be a productive citizen in this LCIW prison. And I know that if I can do that in here, I can be productive out there.
Okay. I see that you've got some people speaking here on your behalf. Your children, how many children do you have?
I have one living.
And that's Ray, who I believe is going to be speaking
sir.
at some later point. Okay.
Yes, sir, my oldest one died last year.
Ms. Swaggerty, I have one other question because I have to say I'm a little curious about your conviction. I note in going through the record, your lawyer had filed a motion to enforce a plea agreement. Did you have an agreement with the state to testify against Mr. Adams, Ronald Adams?
You mean in 2003?
Right, back at the time this all happened. Were you going to be a witness for them as to what he told you?
I told them I would, but being that I was locked up, they never got me and took me to court, so I didn't get to testify. But and my lawyer told me that it would be best if I went ahead and took obstruction of justice because it would make it look good in their eyes. So, and I'm okay.
Did you ever give any statements to the sheriff's office or the district attorney's office about testifying against Mr. Adams?
In orally only, yes, sir. But I never.
Well, did you tell them you were involved in the killing in any way?
I did not. I didn't tell them anything yet because I hadn't had a chance to speak. As far as in the trial, I had called. I was in a parish jail at the time, and I had sent for I believe it was Detective Richard back then. It's been so long.
Okay, I'm just curious, and the reason for my question is I just wonder if maybe you told them something in anticipation of testifying that you were aware he was going to do that or something like that. I'm just trying to figure out something, but
Right.
that's a different issue. How long have you been in prison now?
Almost 24 years, 23 and something.
Okay.
Yes.
And you were how old when this happened?
35.
Okay, and you are close to being 70. Are you 70 yet?
I'm 59.
59, I'm sorry. Okay, so you're almost 60.
59 last week.
All right. That's all the questions I have, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Mirabella. Mr. Jones.
I don't have any questions, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any particular questions either. Mr. Mirabella, Mr. Roche were very thorough. Can we hear from Ms. Tammy? Is it Discon? We'd like to hear from you and Ray, or is it just going to be Ray? Two of you? Okay. You have
Can we
about
do
3
Ray
minutes?
first and then myself?
Yes, and we'll take about 3 minutes each. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Ray.
Not real good at this, but happy birthday, Mom, belated. Thank you. I would like to start by introducing myself. My name is Earl Ray Swaggerty. I'm 37 years old, and I'm the youngest of all my siblings, now the sole surviving sibling of Angela Swaggerty. I have lost both my brothers and a sister the last few years. one of the two brothers I had passed on when I was much younger. I'm raising my two children as a single father. My daughter Jaden is now 13 years old. My son Xander just turned 10 years old this month. As far back as I can remember, my mother and I had a bond that couldn't be broken. She was there for me in the times of need, bandaged me up when I did little things like playing the Evel Knievel stuntman off the porch. She gave me that shoulder to cry on. I lost my Little League football championship. She was there in the good times, birthday parties and summer days at the beach. Backed me up when I wasn't so sure about karate lessons by enrolling with me for support. Christmas would come around and somehow she always was able to get everything on my list. And I think we all kind of understand how hard that is when you get a Christmas list from a child, a young child. Somehow, some way she was at my practices, my football games. She never missed one. I don't know how she did that. Me now being a parent, and the sacrifice that she made to do that. Karate competitions, belt ceremonies. I mean, I can remember a lot of times where every time I looked for her for support, she'd be there pushing me forward, cheering me on, giving me the confidence to push through. My mother is my world, has been my entire life. I was 13 when my world was flipped upside down. Imagine going to school that morning and all was fine, and then getting out of school that evening, and the place where my mother usually sat, my uncle had picked me up. Thank God for my family, all of them that you can and can't see on the screen right now. There's a lot of them here, and I'm very appreciative for that. From that day forward, my life was devastated. I didn't know how to pick up the remaining pieces of my heart that I could find. Life has a way to bring a person to their breaking point. And at that moment, most of us find out who we truly are and what we are made of. I've had days and nights where I've cried myself to sleep, woke up in nightmares, cried myself to sleep again. Many, many nights like that. I'm now a grown single father of two, trying to give my children the sort of good memories my mother gave me. Since the birth of my children, I've often wondered what it would be like to have a chance for them to get the experience from their grandmother that I had as a child from my mother. Now to actually have a real possibility for Jaden and Xander to experience that, what I've told them all this time, all those stories over the years, is simply nothing short of a miracle to have this opportunity. I never thought I'd be in front of you guys today. Dad, I thank you. I know how much of a positive influence in the community my mother would and could be, and the great role model she will be and have been to my children over the years, given that when she's been given the opportunity. It's been hard, but they understand a little bit of it too, as much as they could possibly can, and they love their grandmother very much. She's accomplished so much in her time at the correctional facility, being rehabilitated. She has used her time to the best of her abilities, becoming an ordained minister. Also gotten schooling in horticulture.
All right, Mr. Swaggerty, if you could wrap it up for us,
I'm sorry.
Just a few more seconds, please. That's okay.
I'm truly thankful to be even given the opportunity to be heard today. And I want to thank you all for your service and time on this life-changing decision that you will have to make today. We're all, my entire family, awaiting your blessing. Sincerely, I am Ray Swaggerty. Thank you.
And thank you. We appreciate your input. Ms. Tammy, can we hear from you?
I'm Tammy. I want to thank y'all for allowing me to speak in, on the behalf of my sister Angela. And if I may, I would really, really like to address the victim's family that we've never been able to in 20
No, ma'am,
years.
you need to direct your comments to us, to the board members.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
We were just never allowed to do that at
Right.
court
I
for
understand.
attorneys. But back to Angel, at this time, I would just like to, since there's only 2 of us that's able to speak, I'm going to be speaking on her behalf, but I would just like for you to see all these people are here for her and are supporting her. She has many of her aunts, uncle, siblings, parents. She's got many, many cousins, friends that are all in support of her. And I would say well over 200 people. But we are looking back and looking forward for her being released and coming home. Angel is a very loving, caring, honest, kind, and a sensitive person. She's so sensitive that she's actually done great today, but in our opinion, but she's really a person that just can't get out there and speak because she does break down. I thought I could do better, but I think she's done much better than me. But I know that she's, God, I'm just losing my thoughts here. She usually would probably freeze up, but on the other hand, she's just a very strong individual. And I consider myself to be a strong woman, but I just don't know if I could go through what Angel has endured while incarcerated. It's tough enough surviving on the outside of the prison walls. I can only imagine having to serve 24 plus years on the inside, but she took the bull by the horns and she's been a super role model prisoner. And I'm so proud of her for completing all the programs and the courses that she's been offered while she's been there. I know she's a good person with a heart of gold, and she's been a mentor to so many, especially the younger inmates. That's just her nature, to be a mother hen and to take them under her wing, protect them, and teach them the honest way of life.
You get about 30 seconds. Can you wrap it up for us?
Okay. Well, she's I don't know. We just want her to be able to come home, and if she's granted a pardon or parole today, she will be residing at my mother's, as you know, and she will have a manager position with my business, and we know that she's not going to be a danger or a threat to society. She is really a good person, and she's been raised well. If I can just say this, that it's very hard on my parents because they are in their late 70s and their health is deteriorating, and it's hard for them to go and visit her. They're an hour and a half away from her one way, and if she could just come home, I know that she would just do what's right, because that's the way she was raised. We all were, and she's got
Thank you.
mega support. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your input today. Now, we'd like to hear from the victim's family. And first, we'll hear from Ms. Sandra Schubert.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
Okay, I am Sandra Schubert. I am the daughter of Catherine Adams. I was initially afraid to speak because of retaliation on Angela's part. I know they call her Angel. I'm sorry, I cannot call her that because she took my life. She took my world. I went from a family of 6 to a family of 2. Angela has not, well, let me start by, my mom was 57 years old when she lost her life. I am 57 years old. My mom's siblings, I've got Sybil right here with me. She is 80. She's got siblings that have, one's 90. So longevity in our family is long. And my mom was robbed and my dad was robbed of those many years because of words that were spoken. Angela Swaggerty was responsible and the mastermind of this, or she wouldn't have been convicted for what she was convicted of. It's been 23 years. We finally get days of actually being happy, of actually not remembering every day. It's been really tough on my family. I have 2 kids that never got to know their grandmother or their grandfather. I'm really trying not to break down because this is for my mom and my dad. Brings back, you know, when we knew that they both got life without the possibility of parole, and then we get this letter stating that this is even possible, my world's turned upside down. I fear now. We live, what, 3 miles from Pearl River?
I live in Pearl
My
River.
sister lives in Pearl River. I don't feel safe. I am sorry. Angela wrote me, and I'm proud that she's trying to better herself. She wrote me an apology letter and stating the reason she wants to go home and take care of her elderly parents. That was taken away from us. I would love the opportunity to be able to take care of my mom and dad in their older years. That was taken away, and I'm sorry. Angela was a big cause of this. My brother did not do this on his own. What else? Angela actually told my mom, and this was from my mother's mouth. She told her that she would kill her or she would have it done. Well, she actually spoke those words to my mother, and my mother knew this weeks before it was going to happen. What kind of person does this? You know, the sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt us. Those words killed us, absolutely killed our family. You hid the obstruction of justice for a week. You hid it.
Ms. Schubert, address your remarks to the board, not to Ms. Swaggerty.
Okay, I'm sorry. She hid it. She hid it. She knew about it. I feel like she was the one that dropped my brother off and picked him up. And that's why she was arrested on that. She's not innocent. We just ask that you please, just life in Louisiana, we thought meant life. I feel like we gave Angela clemency when we took the death penalty off. We asked the judge to take the death penalty off the table. I don't believe in death penalty, but I wish I could revert that now because I'm afraid. I'm afraid if she gets out of my children, my grandchildren, yeah, and all of us. I'm also here with family members also. I think that's all.
All right. You did good. Thank you. We appreciate your input. I know it's difficult. Now, it's my understanding, I believe we have a Ms. Wilcox who's also wishing to speak. Warden Boutte, is that correct?
Yes, I have her coming right now.
Okay.
The court. Yes, Ms. Wilcox is also here as an offender at LCIW, and she'll be giving her remarks.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Ms. Wilcox. We need you to introduce yourself for the record, ma'am. Tell us your name and your number.
Okay, my name is Karen Adams Wilcox, 165103.
Okay, and your interest in this case, this is the case of Angela Swaggerty. Can you tell us what your interest is in this case? The clemency application.
It was my mom and my dad.
Okay, so you want to give us a statement?
Yeah, we feel it's too soon. There's never been ownership. There's been ample opportunity. You've never opened up and leveled with me for closure. For, you just haven't owned it.
Mhm.
And that really hurts. It's just like it's never ending, and it's like every so often it comes back up again. It took so long to get it through trial. And then it was one, and then it was the other. And now we're doing the same thing with this. And we feel, my sisters and my aunts and uncles feel like when we asked them to take the death penalty off the table, that was our grace and mercy. And it was more than was given to my mom and my dad.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your remarks this morning. Your sister shared some of those same remarks, so we do appreciate your input. I know it's a difficult situation for you there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, we'd like to the ADA. Mr. Clark?
Yes, ma'am. Just a few words just to follow up on with the family members of the victims in this case. I think that the overriding feeling here has been that there's been no taking account for what's happened here. As you've seen through the entire appellate process, it has been the conviction was unlawful, was unjustified. We don't have, at no point do we have Ms. Swaggerty actually taking responsibility for this horrible crime. The fact that we have had her recorded on a Kell recording, secret recording, where she literally spent the blood-soaked money that was taken from these two individuals, literally blood-soaked money in this case. I share the exact same feelings of the families of the victim, that life means life in this case. Not life means life and then you can get out later, having the family members of these victims be re-victimized for a second time, having to go through this. And that would conclude the DA's comments.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Ms. Swaggerty, is there a statement you'd like to make before we reach a decision?
Yes, ma'am. I have a letter I'd like to read to you, please.
Okay, sure.
Okay. As you can see, I'm very nervous, but at the same time, I'm also very pleased to be able to speak to you. I know that you've all reviewed my case and you have some concerns about me. All I can do is pray that God would allow you to have mercy for me, and also that He would give you the grace to open your hearts and minds to my life. I made a horrible choice 23 years ago. I live with those repercussions of that choice on a daily basis. I am reminded daily that my choice created unimaginable pain and suffering for the surviving victim's family. Their pain brings me sadness. Their loss brings me sorrow. The tragedy of damaged lives is my deepest regret. I am so deeply remorseful for the choice I made. So I pray and trust God to do what only He can do, heal the brokenhearted. I've taken many classes in an attempt to turn my life around. As I told you, my proudest moment while incarcerated was when I received my associate's degree in Christian ministry. I have learned to lean on God and trust in Him. I've also learned that through Christ's love, anything is possible. After 23 years of incarceration, I know it's only by God's grace that I'm able to be sitting in front of you today, asking for my freedom. I pray that the families involved will somehow, someday, find a way to forgive me. Yes, a pardon will allow me freedom, but it'll also give me a second chance to go help others to know God's love and reach out to the younger generation so they can learn to make the right choices in life. I respectfully thank you for listening to my words and my thoughts.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Mr. Roche, are you ready to vote?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I am.
All right.
Madam Chairman, based upon adamant opposition from the entire victim's family, very strong opposition from the DA's office in the 22nd JDC, opposition from law enforcement in that jurisdiction. My vote is to deny Ms. Swaggerty's request for a commutation of sentence.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Marabella?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. No one here denies the horrible crime that was committed on that day. No one certainly denies the pain that the victim and the victim's family has gone through. Ms. Swaggerty has done a lot of very positive things while she has been in prison. From a purely legal perspective, I have some real concerns about how she is charged with murder. It looks to me like she pled guilty. She did accept responsibility, pled guilty to obstruction of justice, and got a 30-year sentence. She then was tried for 2 counts of second-degree murder. I don't know what evidence was presented at the trial. All I have is what we have before us. There were obviously questions that the jury had. I don't know what those questions were. They wanted to know the difference between manslaughter and second-degree murder. I don't know exactly how those were explained. And then the verdict came back 11-1, which is problematic in today's climate as well. Be that as it may, that doesn't justify what she did. I still am I don't know how to articulate it, I guess. I haven't gotten a good enough explanation, I guess, from Mr. Clark. I mean, I accept the fact that she's on a tape talking about spending the money after the fact. That's all obstruction of justice, accessory after the fact. That's all of that. But obviously that jury must have heard something to do what they did. So it would be my vote today based upon not the crime, but based upon what she's accomplished while she's been in prison. It would be my vote today to commute her sentence to 99 years and make her parole eligible after having served 30 years. That would be my vote, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Mr. Jones?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I too was a little confused with the way the sentence, how that came about. But my day, after all the victims opposition and law enforcement opposition, my vote today would be to deny also.
Thank you, sir. My vote this morning would be the same as Mr. Marabella's, based on the work that you've done, that the active strides you've made towards rehabilitation to commute your sentence to 99 years with parole eligibility after having served 30. However, you've received 2 votes to deny your application, 2 votes that were favorable. You need a unanimous vote, so today your application's been denied.
How do we unpack that? So a few first. I mean, we've never seen to think that they're in the same prison together. The victim and the accused are in the same prison, and she came in to testify. We've never seen that before. That is definitely interesting. I don't know what she's in for. I did a quick Google search. I couldn't find anything. And it was interesting because when Mr. O'Shea first started with the questions about the appeals, I was just caught off guard. I'm like, why is he asking about the appeals? Like, a huge percentage of cases, especially commutation hearings, have appeals involved. And why is he getting stuck up on that? And then only after when Mr. Marabella started talking did I get it. And that is that I think Mr. O'Shea was trying to see if she felt that she was wrongfully convicted. She wasn't able to articulate that. Mr. Marabella, and I thought even at the end when Mr. Marabella was talking about it, I saw Mr. O'Shea nodding. I think they felt that it was a lot of iffy Louisiana legal stuff going on. You try someone and convict them for accessory, and then you try them again on a separate time for principle of it. And I'll take Mr. O'Shea and Mr. Marabella's word for it that it's probably some sketchy stuff going on there. And Louisiana, sadly, is notorious for that kind of behavior in their courts. They have a terrible reputation. Not that I'm rooting for her, but I just reading between the lines. Now, for this family, the victims is just terrible. She said she went from a family of 6 to a family of 2. She lost her mother and her father, then her brother because he was involved and they believed that he was manipulated by her. And then at some point they lost their sister in prisons too. And I don't know why. We don't know why. It doesn't seem to have any connection to it. I do have the court doc, and I'll go through it, but I don't think we're going to get anything that Mr. Marabella doesn't already have, right? On Sunday, September 21st, 1997, approximately 9:21 p.m., Karen Wilcox, and this is the same Karen Wilcox who we saw speak from the prison. You know what? Actually, I found her. I found her doc. I had spelt it wrong, I think, which is why. But it looks like it's a drug thing. Karen Wilcox, narcotics detective. Okay, so Marshal Jeremy Church, the narcotics detective. I know I'm being a little all over the place here, but gas station wore device through operation transmitting digital signal to receive detectives hidden near the gas station. After Church parked his truck, the defendant pulled the truck. Church got out of the truck in front passenger seat. After a couple of minutes of idle conversation, Trish asked the defendant if she had the stuff. The defendant then pulled 2 plastic baggies from her bra, one containing powder, the other Pepsi. The defendant stated that there's at least a quarter in each and told Church it would cost $600 for both baggies. So they paid it, and the detectives were running the undercover operation, and they placed her under arrest. She looked way too old. Not saying, you know, I mean, she didn't look young like she'd be doing this. It seems so. Is she really in there for selling stuff? She was sentenced, defendant, on count 1 to 20 years, the first 2 years of which to be served without benefits and suspension, sentenced in 5 years of hard labor. And she was adjudicated a second felony habitual offender. I love it. Louisiana, they literally locked her up as an habitual offender. 20-year sentence. They're such clowns. Over and over, we see the worst of the worst get little 2, 3, 4 year sentences, and here she is getting a 20-year sentence, and she's still locked up. Unbelievable. And the irony of it is that she went to testify against the woman who is accused of offing her parents, who was possibly have gotten out of prison before her. Wow. Sentences are affirmed. She lost her appeal. It's crazy. It's crazy. Where was she? This is the woman who, it just doesn't look like she'd be dealing, but okay. Maybe I have the wrong person. I don't know. But let's get back on subject. I guess you're never too old to deal, right? But then a judge would see it fit to sentence her to 20 years. I just don't get it, man. So Karen Wilcox arrived at the mobile home where she lived with her parents, James Ronald and Catherine Adams, and discovered their bodies. James Adams had suffered numerous stab wounds and slash wounds, including a stab around his neck, which severed his carotid artery. He also had been shot in the neck. A stab wound to his abdomen had penetrated his liver. I mean, the guy just butchered him. There was also a wound to his forehead consistent with being struck with the butt of a rifle. Catherine Adams had also suffered numerous stab and slash wounds, including a large slash around her neck. So this was a violent, violent crime. She had suffered fractured skull and portion of her scalp had been torn off. She was scalped. Both victims died within 3 to 5 minutes of through their carotid artery. It had contained important papers, coins, $2 bills, and other cash. I still have $2 bills I collected like 20 years ago. It's funny. I still have it for some reason. Defendant is the victim's son at the time. The defendant is the victim's son. At the time the victim's death, the relationship between the defendant and his mother, Catherine, had deteriorated because of their relationship with his girlfriend, Angela Swaggerty, of whom his mother disapproved. His mother had previously advised the defendant and others that she would remove him from her will, and had an appointment with her attorney to change the will. What was in her will anyways? I mean, how much money could it have possibly been? They're living in a trailer. On September 21st, 1997, between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m., Donna McLeod accompanied her friend Angela Swaggerty to pick up the defendant from the lumberyard. After the defendant got into the car, Ms. Swaggerty asked him what had happened. The defendant replied, "They're both unalive." He stated that he had dressed in dark clothing, wearing a mask, and had confronted his father, James. The defendant described his mother identifying his voice and his father then telling him, You'd better kill me now, because if not, you're going to spend the rest of your life in jail. Wow. The defendant stated that he also had to kill his mother because she had recognized his voice. The defendant indicated that he shot one of the victims, but after his gun jammed, he also used the butt of his shotgun and knife. Unbelievable. Miss Swaggerty drove behind an old Winn-Dixie store where the defendant retrieved a garbage bag and a pair of tennis shoe boots. The defendant returned to the car, and Swaggerty drove around to the truck parked on the side of the building. Defendant then got out and wiped down the steering wheel, dashboard, and door of the truck. The three then went to Miss McLeod's camper. At the camper, the defendant changed into some clothes from the car, and Miss Swaggerty examined the contents of the garbage bag, which contained various papers, envelopes, a butter bowl of coins, a pack of $2 bills, and approximately $780 in cash. Miss McLeod observed the defendant with a dark knit mask and gun. The papers were returned to the garbage bag, but the defendant and Miss Swaggerty left the butter bowl change and the $2 bills in the camper. The three then went to the Waffle House restaurant. Either defendant or Miss Swaggerty placed the garbage bag in the trunk. I mean, it's showing how she would have gotten obstruction of justice and all those charges. But I guess Miss Swaggerty and the defendant advised, just stay calm, stay cool. There's no evidence. They can't find nothing. Yeah, okay. James Adams' truck was recovered near Winn-Dixie supermarket. Blood and hair recovered from the driver's side interior of the vehicle. A DNA profile of the blood consistent with that of Catherine Adams. The genetic profile, I mean, we're probably not going to see in here any evidence that she was involved, because surely that would have been brought up, that would have been known, right? Involved more than on an obstruction perspective. Yeah, it doesn't. The state presented testimony on trial from Wenda Cheryl Adams, the victim's daughter and the defendant's sister, regarding a telephone conversation she had with the defendant soon after. On cross-examination, the defense inquired whether Wanda Adams was aware that her mother and her sister had become more and more concerned about the defendant's relationship. Miss Angela Swaggerty. The court sustained the state's objection to question on the grounds the same call for speculation because Wanda Adams was not living in Louisiana at the time. The defense then asked Wanda Adams if her mother had expressed any such concern. So they're talking about whether this would have been hearsay. I don't know. Man, if someone, I don't see where, yeah, we don't have that. We're not going to have the evidence there. But she was denied. She was still locked up, right? And she hasn't aged particularly well. This is her Facebook inmate letterquest profile. She release date unknown. However, she's currently in custody. You can use Vine inmate locator. Hello, my name is Angela Swaggerty. All my friends call me Angel. I'm 49 years old and I'm looking, well, this is old. I'm 49 years old. This was written in 2012 and I'm looking for a friend, maybe more. Someone who won't play with my heart and destroy it. I'm tired of the game players. I've been incarcerated 14 years, but my time is short now and I'm tired of being lonely. If you're interested, please write me. I have a big heart. Love to listen to music, barbecue, boat riding, do crafts, but most of all, I love to cuddle. I have no real friends, man or woman. That's sad. It's how do you feel about it? I mean, do you feel that if she was, did she know about it? Do you think they had enough proof that she knew about it? That she was first tried and the whole issue with the deal, and she agreed to testify against him, but they never ended up using her to testify against him. And there seems to be a lot of the water is muddled, so to speak. Interesting that she got the split decision as well. I thought that was rather interesting.
Good morning, Ms. Porche. How are you?
I'm fine. And yourself?
Good. Tell me exactly how long have you been incarcerated?
I've been incarcerated for 22 and a half years.
Okay. And the original sentence was for a second-degree murder. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And tell me the circumstances in which that was remanded back, and as a result, you didn't get a new trial, but you pleaded guilty to manslaughter. Would you explain the circumstances?
The appeal was decided on an issue of the jury coming back, and they were in the middle of trying to decide between manslaughter and second-degree murder. And they asked for two things. They wanted to know what the description was of principal to manslaughter, and they wanted to know what my statement was. They wanted to review my statement again to the detectives. And my attorney asked that they be notified of the mandatory life penalty. And the judge denied the mandatory penalty, and the judge denied the question for clarification on what a principal charge to manslaughter was. And he did allow my statement to go back into the deliberation room. And so they placed a lot of weight on that one piece of evidence, and it enabled them to convict me of the second-degree murder charge instead of what they were trying to lean towards. And the circuit court decided that it wasn't a fair deliberation.
Okay. And in the interim, what changed your mind of a plea of not guilty, and you having another trial with the possibility of being found innocent, but you pled guilty and accepted 35 years at DOC?
Well, before I appealed my case, my victim's daughter and her lawyer, Michael Somany, had approached me and asked me to testify and make a deposition on her behalf in a lawsuit that she was suing the apartment complex where her father was murdered. And they wanted me to testify on her behalf as to the crime that night. So I incriminated myself in order to do this, and I willingly did that. And the night before I went to my second trial, my attorney, he came to the jail and he said that Mr. Somany had received notice that I was going back to trial, and he decided to take that deposition to the district attorney's office, and they told me that they would use it against me to reconvict me for second-degree murder. And so I ended up pleading guilty and taking the plea
Okay.
35.
I understand fully. Now, did you have any co-defendants in this crime?
Yes, sir. I have 4 co-defendants.
Okay, and were each one of those convicted?
Yes, sir.
And convicted of what?
The
Gary Harrell and Travis Johnson were convicted of first-degree murder. They pled guilty to first-degree murder to avoid the death penalty. I was the only person who took my case to trial. And Brandon Lee and Kendall Barlow pled guilty to manslaughter in order, they took a deal to turn state's evidence and to testify against the first two co-defendants.
Okay. I see you have tremendous family support here today. What were the circumstances that led to you being homeless prior to committing this offense?
Okay, I had a daughter, and I was in the midst of a really bad drug addiction to cocaine and heroin. And I was suffering a relapse, and I was in the midst of transferring custody of my 5-month-old daughter to Simone because I could no longer take care of her.
Okay, so basically, you had a drug problem.
Yes, sir.
And when did you first start using drugs?
I started probably around 14 with alcohol and marijuana, and I escalated probably at the age of 17.
Okay, tell me, when is the last time that you received any extensive substance abuse treatment?
In 2017, I completed the Living in Balance 1 and 2 substance abuse program here at LCIW.
Okay. And I need you to be honest. When is the last time that you abused drugs or alcohol?
May 30th, 1998,
So you know exact date.
the night of my crime.
So you've been confronted with the opportunity to use drugs or alcohol while incarcerated.
Yes, sir.
What has stopped you from using it?
No. Well, I don't ever want to be that person that I was at 19 years old. I don't ever want to lose control of my life like that again, ever. I don't ever want to be capable of the things that I've done in my life while I was on drugs.
Okay. Let me just inform you that the sentencing judge is adamantly opposed to clemency. The district attorney's office is opposed. The sheriff's office in Terrebonne Parish is opposed. And there is a very lengthy letter from Brandy Moon, and you know who Brandy Moon is.
Yes, sir.
And stating that you took advantage of her father, of his kind heart and his compassion for you because you were homeless. So you have opposition.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about the programs that you're taking right now and any programs that you completed in the last 5 years.
Okay. In the last 5 years, I have taken, I've done my victim accountability letter. I've taken Living in Balance Phase 2, Living in Balance Phase 1, Living in Balance. I have earned my associate's degree, and I'm 3 classes away from my bachelor's degree at Ashland University. I have taken the reentry program. I have taken money management, job placement skills and assistance, employment skills, victim awareness and restitution, values and goal setting and achievement. I've taken anger management, personal development, life healing choices for codependency issues, anger management. I'm taking, I've done 2 years of New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary as an undergraduate. I've taken Celebrate Recovery, and I am a certified horticulture tutor.
So you've covered the gamut. You've covered everything.
Yes, sir.
Tell me, what do you do? What is your job at the facility?
Right now, I am working as an orderly, and I also work in the canteen. I also am responsible for helping with fundraisers.
Okay. How long have you worked in the canteen?
Maybe about a few months now. That's a volunteer job that I just started doing. That's an addition.
And it's a very trustworthy job also.
Oh, yes. I'm responsible for other people's paid for goods. Yeah.
So tell me about your employment skills. You were on drugs, so you didn't have employment prior to being incarcerated. Tell me which job skills that you have acquired while incarcerated that will give you a means of support.
Okay. I have over 10 years of cosmetology services in a beauty shop. I have 6 years in the food industry as a cook and prep cook. I have a year of college tutor, which I got certified, and I've got licensed in landscape contracting. I've gotten licensed in pesticide application. I've received my nurseryman certification through the Louisiana Department of Ag. And I taught horticulture for about 2 years. So I got skills there and options there. I did a year in maintenance working in plumbing. And I worked as an offender sub-counsel, helping offenders with their appeals, their post-conviction relief, and their disciplinary appeals.
So you've been busy.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about your daughter. How old is your daughter now?
My daughter is 23, and she was 5 months old when I was arrested.
Okay. Is she married?
No, she is not.
Okay. So tell me about your transition plan. Where do you plan to live and where do you plan to work?
Okay, I decided to go with the parole project because I understand that after 22 years, I'm probably going to need a more structured or controlled transition. I want to be able to have full access to continued sobriety treatment, NA, AA, CODA classes, Celebrate Recovery outside. And I know that they have the resources to help me to remain in treatment, to help keep my accountability system in place, and to help me in finding employment, housing, and transportation. So I'm going to go with them for long term.
So you plan to live in the metropolitan Baton Rouge area?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, tell this panel this morning, why should we commute your sentence?
Okay, I'm miles away from the 19-year-old that I was 22 and a half years ago. I take full ownership of my actions. I realized that had it not been for the role that I played on May 30th, 1998, Mr. Moon would never have been murdered. And I understand that, and I'm very deeply sorry for that. Incarceration has been my intervention, and I realized that I have a lifelong sobriety and treatment to face when I get out of here, because I know that just because I was here and, not under the influence of drugs, that doesn't mean that everything's fixed. And it's a growing process. And I know that I'm still working and I'm still continually trying to fix myself. But if I am given a chance, I would definitely pursue that. And I would like to maintain and fix my relationship with my family, because I've been going a long time and I know that I hurt them, and I left my child out there, and she didn't deserve that. She didn't deserve that at all.
So, and I know you touched on it, but give me, this is my last question, give me a specific sobriety plan that will keep you clean from drugs and alcohol. What is a specific plan that you have formulated?
I'm going to get a sponsor, and I'm going to enroll in weekly AA and NA classes. There are online classes called CODA classes, which help with the codependency issues. I'm going to register with those, and I want, my daughter is actually attending Celebrate Recovery, and I want to attend those classes too with her. So that's definitely a plan. That's going to be a mandatory thing for me.
Thank you, Madam. Madam Chairman, that completes my interview.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Jones, do you have any questions?
Ms. Porche, can you hear me this time?
Yes, sir.
Good morning. Again, I apologize for the connection we had. I'm not going to rehash Mr. Roche. I've done a great job interviewing you this morning, and I just want to commend you for all the good work you've done. And I have no other questions at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Marabella?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ms. Porche, I've got a few questions. I was reviewing your file and I note that there were some issues with your lawyer. I understand that. You also indicated that you were on suicide watch during the trial, much of the trial. Was that drug related? Was that based upon mental health issues? What was that based upon?
It was based on mental health issues, and in the parish jail, they didn't really have a mental health department. So their intervention is the only thing that they can do. And so they put me on 2 different psychiatric medicines, and they put me on suicide watch to make sure that I was okay during that process.
Okay. Have you had any mental health issues since the trial or since the disposition of your case where you pled guilty?
Yes, I've had anxiety issues, for which I have been on medication years ago. I've learned since then with one-on-one counseling sessions with my social worker during the process of me going through the sexual trauma counseling, how to manage those anxiety issues. They gave me breathing exercises and things like that to help me cope with the feelings of anxiety without having to medicate.
Okay.
And I've done a really good job.
Do you take medication?
I don't take any
now?
medicine.
Okay.
The only medicine that I take now is for my lupus and my rheumatoid arthritis.
And the suicidal issues, do you attribute that to your drug withdrawal or the pressure you were under being set for trial for murder? Or?
I think it was definitely the pressure and the stress of the trial, because mind you, when I went on suicide watch, that was a good 2 or 3 years into my incarceration. So I had not had any contact with drugs for at least 2 or 3 years. So I definitely have to say it was all stress related.
Okay. Do you currently, where you are now, do you currently see a counselor or therapist that monitors your mental health?
Yes, I'm at a lower mental health risk now. So I do see a social worker who keeps up with us on, I think it's a tri-monthly basis, where they check in with us and they do the mental health assessment, and they make sure that if we need any resources or any extra counseling or one-on-one, they'll give it to us. And they come every day. They do. They come every day, and if you need to talk to them, they are always available.
Okay. Mr. Roche asked you about your plan to stay off drugs, and I applaud you for that. It's an excellent plan that you have. My question is, do you have a similar plan for your mental health? Do you anticipate continuing counseling as well if you are paroled?
Yes, I think that it's essential, especially with the codependency issues and the anxiety issues. I definitely think that it is something that I need to do.
Thank you very much for answering my questions. Madam Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Mr. Wise?
Yeah, I have just one question here. I see you had a total of 86 disciplinary actions. The last one was back in 6/10/12. But one of the concerns I have, and I know a lot of those write-ups has been back there some, you've had 40 either disobedience or aggravated disobedience. You've lost 403 days of good time. And I know that's been along the way. And why was all the disobedience and aggravated disobedience?
I'm not sure what they were all for, but I know a lot of them I can attribute to me like talking in the kitchen. They have rules in place for a reason, and we didn't always adjust very well to those rules. And I definitely think that I probably was young and still getting into trouble, still having problems, not getting the help that I needed. And I'm not going to make excuses. I did wrong things, and including, just disobeying the rules in general. I mean, if they give you an order for the day and they say, hey, there's no talking in the kitchen, then that means no talking in the kitchen. So if you talk in the kitchen, that's it.
I understand that, but the aggravated disobedience, sometimes talking back to people. And your last one, I think, was one of those aggravated disobedience.
I have actually, the last report I received was in 2009 for unsanitary practice for smoking in an undesignated area. That's the last one I remember at all.
And in 6, 10, and 12, you had a write-up, a Rule 5,
12,
according to my records.
number
that-
5 in 2012. I'm not sure what it was. I'm not sure.
But anyway, I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. So, Ms. Porche, what do you think it was that you prompted the where you turned the corner, where you stopped getting the write-ups? What happened?
Well, I got into seminary. I can say that seminary actually changed the trajectory of my life. It was a really big deal for me because when I was younger, I was sexually assaulted by a member of the church, and I left the church for a great many years. And excuse me, seminary was the way back to God, and it was the way of healing for me. And I got a lot of help there. I got a lot of mentoring and counseling, and they taught me accountability. They taught me not to be the problem, but to be the solution. And they taught me about my codependency issues. They really, really opened the door for me to start treatment. And if you look at the dates of the things and the programs that I was taking, it was all basically after that. In fact, I never got a report again after I was accepted in the seminary. And I got to give them the credit for that because they really did help.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. I could tell there was something that just changed. So good answer. We'd like to hear from the folks this morning who've indicated they'd like to speak, and we'll start with Ms. Jeremy.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Roche.
Can we hear from the staff before that, please?
Before we, yeah, Warden LeBlanc.
Hey, good morning. Just to mention, I know it was said a moment ago that she did lose some of her some days, but those were restored by one of the wardens going through the process. So all of the days she had previously lost had been restored. With all of the classes that she completed, she's maxed out on her CTRP credits. She has been 9 years report free. She hadn't had any write-ups since 2012. And, she's done a lot since she's been here. All of the numerous classes, she has her GED, she's completed some college courses. She's been involved in the Lifers Association, the JCs, Unveiled. So she's really worked hard to try to be in all the programs that she could be in while she's here, the clubs. Looking at the long list of her certificates, I'd be hard to find something that she did not try to do or try to get involved in. So I just wanted to mention that. She's also a minimum 2 offender as well. So she's a minimum status. So that's all I have at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Jeremy, can we hear from you now?
Good morning. My name is Christy Jeremy. I work for the Louisiana Parole Project as a reentry specialist. Due to Ms. Porsche's requests and her recognizing the need and the importance of what a successful reentry looks like, we have accepted Ms. Porche as a client. However, I do understand that today is not a parole board hearing, and we want the board to know that we are committed to providing services and peer-led mentorship to Ms. Porche. if she in fact becomes parole eligible. I want to make the board aware, I'm sure that everyone is aware that I too were incarcerated. And I served 25 years of a life sentence starting at the early ages of 16. Throughout my incarceration, I was able to get to know Melissa on a more personal level and privilege of being her friend. We worked together as tutors in the horticulture program. We guided and led other ladies towards their education. We started seminary together as well, but most importantly, we were able to be a part of each other's growth and the preparations one should take in order to become a successful woman, a better individual, even when there was no possibility of a relief. We want the board to feel confident that if Ms. Porche is granted a favorable recommendation, we are committed to providing such services. We have truly been successful in providing our clients who have served long-term sentences. And we will commit to her plans, to helping her become the independent, self-sufficient woman that she needs to become in order to lead a successful life. And I appreciate the opportunity of being able to speak on her behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate you speaking on her behalf. Thank you. So we'd like to hear from family. I don't know, I have two of them. I think that two of you want to speak, so I'll just let you go first if you'd introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Therese. I am Melissa Porche's biological daughter. Just wanted to start off by saying thank you for the chance to speak this morning. And I want to start by sharing a scripture verse. It's 2 Corinthians 5:17, and it says, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away, behold, the new has come." My mom has been incarcerated for 22 years due to her orchestration and the involvement of the robbery that resulted in the devastating loss of Curtis Moon's life. Although my mom did not imagine that her co-defendants were capable of taking a life, nor did she consider the tragedy to be a possible outcome, she has complete regret and remorse for her part in the crime. As someone who has overcome an opiate addiction as well, I too have experienced what it's like to become conscience absent. The concept of right and wrong and any sense of consequence are mentally unaccounted for. An excerpt from Harvard Health Publishing describes it like this: addiction exerts a long and powerful influence on the brain that manifests in three distinct ways: craving for the object of addiction, loss of control over its use, and continuing involvement with it despite adverse consequences. This doesn't by any means excuse her actions that day, but it does shed some light on the state of mind that she was in. Through her relationship with God, sobriety, and efforts to transform herself, my mother has grown tremendously over the past 22 years. Remorseful and determined to repent, she's dedicated her life to completing several programs, courses, support groups, degrees, and certifications. Over the years of maintaining a relationship with my mom, I've witnessed not only through her words, but her actions that she fully recognizes and takes ownership of her crime. Although nothing can change what's been done, I'm certain that she will spend the rest of her life doing everything that she can to repent, restore her reputation, and earn trust in her community. The bond between my mom and I has never been shaken through the separation that we've endured the past 22 years. But more than anything, I long for her freedom. A passion to mentor women and serve others is a calling that both her and I share.
And I have great faith that Melissa will have so much to offer young troubled women who are in similar circumstances that she is. With the help of family, friends, and Parole Project, we've created a plan for Melissa's reentry, and she has a positive, healthy support system if she's granted early release. I commit to assisting her financially and with housing if needed, and I'll be here through every stage of her reentry. My mom has been a huge role model to me, and she's played a significant role in my transition into adulthood. She's shown me that no matter how many mistakes that I make, it's never too late to change my course and reinvent myself. I've learned through God that we can be renewed, reinvented, and restored. And in my eyes, Melissa is truly the greatest testimony of Corinthians 5:17. And I really hope that her actions the past 22 years and our testimonies illustrate that Melissa is a completely transformed person. And with that said, thank you for your time, and I earnestly ask for you to consider her worthy of a second chance.
Thank you. Thank you, Therese. Ms. Simone, would you like to speak?
I do, and thank you very much. I'm going to read because I'm a little worked up.
Okay.
I sincerely hope that we can embrace Melissa shortly. I'm Simone Poinson, the adopted mother of Therese, Melissa Porche's biological daughter. I was introduced to Melissa by a friend who was helping her to find an adoptive family for her child at birth. A teenager pregnant and without the commitment of family help and support in her situation. Melissa initiated the calls about the adoption with my husband Doug and I. We had many conversations as she discovered the values of our family and decided that we would adopt Therese. Once Melissa decided to allow us to adopt Therese, she legally had to return to Houma, where she could immediately sign custody papers. Therese's biological father had reservations on signing, so we provided housing in Houma for Melissa while awaiting his signature. It was during this time that Melissa relapsed. Shortly after, she orchestrated the robbery that resulted in the loss of the precious, innocent life of Mr. Curtis Moon. A year after this horrendous event, and many phone calls from Melissa expressing sorrow, I visited her at St. Gabriel, where she confessed to me her deep remorse for what transpired. My daughter cuddled in her lap and would watch Melissa as she spoke for the entire visit. It shook me to the core. I realized the biological connection of a mother and daughter. My husband and I committed that day to support the relationship of Melissa and Therese. Through phone calls and visitations, I witnessed much maturation, so much so that during the year she helped co-parent Therese, at times when only her words got through to my daughter. Melissa's good behavior and mentorship to other inmates directly affected her ability to emotionally support Therese, and once even earned a paid summer vacation in 2012 for Therese. My personal relationship with Melissa has developed, and I can attest to her good character and loving nature, as I believe she has much to offer society in a positive manner. We are committed with continued support as if she were our own daughter, if she is granted early parole. If needed, she has a room in my house and will be provided for there. Also, we will help financially with necessities during this time of transition while setting herself up for independence. We are also committed to prayers for the repose of Mr. Moon's soul and the healing of his family. I sincerely hope that all on the board will see through the eyes of mercy that Melissa Porche is no longer the lost teenager who committed the crime, but rather a repentant, rehabilitated, mature woman who has done everything in her power the last 22 years to better herself and prepare for her release. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Ms. Jones, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Okay. As I said earlier, I assisted in writing the brief for Melissa's hearing, and I also prepared her for the hearing under the supervision of Robert Lancaster. If it's all right with the board, I would like to make a statement on her behalf today. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Melissa over the past several weeks, and I'm honored to be here today on her behalf. She is a great candidate for clemency and has effectively been rehabilitated after 22 years of incarceration. Perhaps the best evidence of her successful rehabilitation is her constant drive and motivation. In 2018, she had a hearing in front of this board in which she was denied. However, she didn't let that discourage her. She's remained diligent and she's completed a plethora of additional programming to aid her in her rehabilitation. Since then, she completed the Living in Balance substance abuse program. She completed a sexual assault support group. She even worked on Louisiana's only female prison magazine. And she's earned 2 associate's degrees from Ashland University, where she excelled in the classroom. And as she said, she only has 3 more classes to go until she has her bachelor's. Some other programs that also facilitated her rehabilitation were the Cage Your Rage program, her substance abuse programs, the Victims Awareness Program, and of course, seminary. And for the past decade, she's received no disciplinary reports. She follows orders as expected, and she does what is asked of her in whatever her capacity or role is at any given time. She also comes to this board today with a phenomenal reentry plan, which she didn't have 2 years ago at her first hearing. With the support of the Parole Project, she will have immediate access to long-term housing, all of the program resources, and she plans to continue going to AA and NA to maintain her sobriety weekly. She also plans to continue volunteering, and she has phenomenal support from her family and friends. In conclusion, based on her exemplary institutional record and her strong reentry plan, it's clear that Melissa is no longer the 19-year-old she was when she came to prison. Instead, she's a fully rehabilitated, strong, and caring woman, and is hopeful for a second chance. For these reasons, we would ask that this board grant her request for commutation of sentence to include a sentence with immediate parole eligibility. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Ms. Porche, is
You're
there a
muted.
statement you'd like to make?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm thankful for the chance to be here today and to be heard. First, I want to personally apologize to Mr. Moon, to his family, to his friends, and my community and my family. I have betrayed every single one of you. I take full responsibility for my actions, and I know that had it not been for my role, he may still be alive today. And I'm deeply sorry for what I've done. I'm ashamed of the things that I did as a reckless and selfish 19-year-old, but I'm proud of the woman that I have become today. It took me 2 decades of hard work, and the process has been humbling. Around the end of 2009 and 10, I was screened for the NOBTS program, which is a seminary, and I began those classes in 11. And this program has drastically changed my life. I stopped being the problem and I started being part of the solution. And when I gained momentum, I availed myself of every opportunity that they presented to me so that I could get the treatment that I needed. I have to say that I had help. The staff and administration has been phenomenal. They facilitated this process. They pushed me past my complacency. They set a higher standard for me. And they really made me live that scripture that said, to whom much is given, much is required. They were the role models that I didn't have when I was 19. And I want to thank y'all for being not just the gatekeepers, but for being my shepherds too. I'm fully confident that with the education, the training, the skills, and the resources that I've gained and my continued commitment to my sobriety and to my treatment, that I can and I will be an asset if I'm given a chance to be released. And I thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you. Well said. Mr. Jones, are you prepared to vote?
I'd like to move that we go into executive session, please.
All right, we have a motion for executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Roche. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Marabella,
Yes.
Ms. Renazzo,
Yes.
Mr. Roche,
Yes.
Mr. Wise.
Yes.
All right, we'll be in executive session for a few moments to discuss confidential matters. Just stand by. We'll be back shortly.
Well, I wonder what they're talking about. I do have a lot of information to go over. Well, not so much information, but it's kind of interesting. Like, but you know, you have no victim opposition show up to speak. It kind of sets the tone, in my opinion. What is interesting is that the judge is adamantly opposed. It's not often that we see that. Now what I can do is I can fast forward the wait. It seems that it was about 2 minutes. And we'll unpack it after. What do you think they're going to do?
All right, there he is. Okay, I think we're all back in regular session and we are prepared to vote. We'll start with Mr. Roche.
Ms. Porche, you are commended. You should be commended for what you've done in the last 9 years. Your last disciplinary write-up was 9 years ago. You entered into the seminary and you have did an amazing job with programming, amazing job with community service, and with amazing job with rehabilitating yourself. So based on excellent programming, positive remarks by Warden LeBlanc, good family support, low risk assessment score, and no disciplinary write-ups for the last 9 years, my recommendation is that we recommend to the governor immediate parole eligibility.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Jones?
Ms. Porche, I too want to commend you for all the good work you've done and the things you've done since you've been incarcerated. And I agree with Mr. Roche. My vote today would be to grant immediate parole eligibility also.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Marabella?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ms. Porche, I simply agree with my colleagues. You've done a really good job, worked very hard to get where you are now, and you should be commended for that. It would be likewise my vote for all of the reasons given already to grant commute your time to immediate parole eligibility. Good luck to you, ma'am.
Mr. Wise?
At this time, I'm going to vote to grant your parole to pardon to immediate parole eligibility. at this time. And I want to thank each and every one that's been here today to conduct this hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. And Ms. Porche, I do concur with my colleagues based on the work that you've done. My vote today would be that your sentence be commuted to include immediate parole eligibility. So we'll make that recommendation on your behalf to Governor Edwards. Good luck to you. Thanks everybody who joined us today. We appreciate your participation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much.
Good luck.
I want to meet her. I want to meet her and her friends. Will she want to be able to?
I don't know who was saying that. Not a terrible mic moment. Oh, hang on. They added this new feature on StreamYard, which is just the most amazing feature, and that is a pause and continue button. Up until now, if someone would interrupt me, I would pretty much lose the recording. It's like there's nothing I can do unless I go into an editing software and try to edit it out, and I'm not an editor. And it's amazing. They've just added this new button, and it's something I've always wanted. It's like, why can't you have it? And they did it, and it's like it is a life changer when it comes to recordings. I can click pause, and I could. It's like I don't have the habit of using it because I've been not using it for a year or so. But it's anyways. So this was a commutation hearing, not a parole hearing. She was having her sentence recommended to be commuted by the governor, which is what she just got approved for. And it so happens to be the governor did sign it. And then she had a parole hearing, which took place on which I reviewed on December 13th, 2022. It is 6,300 views or so. I'll put the link to that below. So, because we have access to this hearing, if I had done the parole hearing, never seeing the commutation hearing. The parole hearing's short. It's 17 minutes, including my commentary, because they're typically just going through the motions. I've only seen, I think, that I can recall one parole hearing after a commutation has been approved that was denied. And it was because the family members were not told about the commutation hearing. So there was no opposition, and they showed up in droves to the parole hearing, made a lot of noise, and I think that had a lot to do with then the person being denied. And the parole hearing was a disaster. I wondered how he even got commutation because it just did not seem deserving of it. Okay. The idea that she did get so there's like a lot of problems, it seems, with the trial that she ended up getting a really long sentence. A lot of questions around the judge and what he had allowed and did not allow. And the jury didn't seem to want to try her and you could still see the judge is like refusing to admit that he was wrong. She wasn't at the scene of this. It was a horrific crime, but she wasn't there. From all the information that I have, and I'll share it with you, it seemed that she was a 19-year-old girl that told a bunch of guys, hey, this man I hang out with, he's got money, go rob him. I mean, that it seems to be what she did. And then when they were done, I think she helped get rid of evidence. But she had no idea that they were going to do what they did, which was they waited inside his home. He got there. They beat him up, tied him to a chair, and then and he bled out. And that is horrific crime. But she wasn't there. She never told them to do that. She said, rob him. And, she was the only one that went to trial. They all took deals. Now, Richard, thank you for finding the stuff. What you're looking at here is actual newspaper stuff, I'll put the links in the description. 3 arrested, 2 still at large. This is her right here. It's funny how it's like 1998 and it's all newspaper archives, and how far have we come where you wouldn't. I mean, I still get a newspaper delivered to me because I do like to read a newspaper. Call me old school, but it's more about like the experience that I do it with the coffee and everything. But it's just weird to look at it. It feels like this could be 100 years ago, not 25 years ago. 1998 was such a long time ago. It seems like yesterday. Here, this was what? Woman gets life in nightclub owner's undoing. A woman convicted of plotting to unalive a nightclub owner a year and a half ago has been sentenced to life in prison. State District Judge Charles Hanneman on Friday gave Melissa Porche the maximum and mandatory penalty. While she didn't actually often, prosecutors said she came up with the robbery plan that ended with his demise. The sentence is richly deserved by this defendant, Hanneman said. Even though Ms. Porche was not the one to cut his throat, she is every bit as culpable, morally and legally, as the individuals who did it. Porche 20 was she turned 20. She was 19. First suspect tried in May 30th, 1998, robbery, co-owner, nightclub. She was convicted last month. He was 74 years old. He was found in his apartment 11 days. Ew, that is awful. Tied up. Oh no, this is something else. I'm confused now. 74 was found in his apartment 11 days after Moon's tied up like Moon, and with his they're trying to compare if there are 2 other crimes similar to this. But I can't really get into that. This was written in 2000. Oh, see, they published something online. 2000. He was a fun-loving man who enjoyed living the good life and sharing it with them. When the criminal cases for his terrible undoing 2 years ago concluded at mid-month, District Attorney Doe Waits put the matters for perspective. The public's focus should be on Moon and his memory, not those who took his life. It's funny they don't mention her in this article. Here. Porche, along with Gary Duck, Harold Travis, Sugar, Johnson Kendall, and Brandon, was charged with it because she allegedly suggested the robbery. He was tied up with a foam cord, beaten across the head with a blunt object, and his throat was slashed. They made off with $1,000 in cash. Porche, by her own admission to police, knew Moon and suggested Harold Johnson and Lee rob him when he returned. Porche was the only one of 5 who stood trial for the crime. Harold and Johnson pleaded guilty. and serving life sentences he received. It's just bizarre. I mean, just from what we've seen, it seems that she suggested that they rob him. I don't know how you get the sentence that she got for making that suggestion, but I think it's good that she got her sentence commuted. Frankly, that's just me. She seems that she's done great in prison, and I'll put the link to her parole hearing in the description below. But with that, I'll let you go.